Okay, so now we're going to learn how to throw a shallow bowl that looks kind of like a platter. It's going to have a flat base and then sort of straight sides, and then I'll probably manipulate the sides a little bit when I'm done so it looks a little bit more oval, and then put some really interesting handles on it. So I have a bigger chunk of clay here, which as you get on in your time, your months on the wheel, you want to try to throw bigger and bigger things just to push your edges like we talked about. So first thing I'm going to do when I'm centering the bigger piece of clay is kind of get it into the muffin shape to begin with before I pull it up. So I start with this part of my hand way at the bottom, and I'm pushing down on the top, and I'm sort of bringing my hand up the side. And the way that I keep this edge under control so it doesn't flare out is that I'm cupping the piece with this meat of my thumb and my palm like that. And again, my elbow is inside my leg, and I'm leaning in with my leg, and I'm leaning in with my core strength. And this is especially important when you start working with larger pieces of clay, because you don't ever want to feel like you're wrestling with the clay, your arm wrestling with the clay. You really want to just use your body strength to center it and get it under control. Okay, so now that it's not centered yet, I might look it, but I can see it wobbling, and I know that the clay on the inside needs to be recycled and centered throughout the piece. So I want to bring it up. Now as you get more used to centering, you're going to start to center differently. So to pull up your trunk, you're going to pull it up, and then you're going to kind of push it down, and pull it up and push it down. It's going to become sort of this continuous motion. And I just call this like wedging the clay on the wheel here. I'm sort of pushing the clay on the outside up, and then I'm pushing it down. And I start out with a pretty wet sponge in my hand. And when I need the water, I just kind of push my hand up against the piece a little bit harder, and then water will come out of the sponge and lubricate the clay. And as you're doing this, you can just feel it getting more centered. Using a little bit of arm strength here, just a little bit, like my biceps and my forearms. And now I'm going to try to take it down again into this muffin shape we talked about again. And I'm going to see, it's going to feel a lot more centered once I do the tree trunk a couple times. And you can see it, you can feel it. So then I run my hand up and down a couple times. You can see the clay move as my hand moves up the side. And then I'm going to close my eyes for a second. And if I don't feel a wobble, then I'm going to say, hey, it's centered, but I'm going to let go slow. I'm going to slow the wheel head down. I'm going to find the center with my thumbs. And when you have more clay, you got to open up a little more slowly, because there's more clay to throw it off center. Okay. I'm thinking, kind of using both of my thumbs now, and I'm sort of cupping the inside of the piece with my thumbs, the curve of my thumbs. Okay, now I'm still triangulating, I'm still kind of just touching with my fingertips. Still, this is my tool, this is my guide and my force. I'm going to start to drag open my piece towards 4 o'clock, and keeping the outside a little bit under control with my left hand fingers here. My base is about 3/4 of an inch thick. After you pull it open about halfway, you want to center the wall. So I'm pinching and I'm pulling up, and I'm leaning in, because the more that I pull this bigger piece of clay out, the more the force is going to take it out. So I want to, halfway out, I want to pull it back in and get it under control. Okay, then I'm going to open it up a little bit more. And then when I center my wall again, I'm centering all the way down to the base of the wheel head. I don't want a big old dip right there. I want to keep that flush to the wheel head. Okay. Now I've got a big old lump of clay in the middle here, and I'm gonna deal with that right now. Probably a little bit more than I would want, but it is what it is. I'm gonna get rid of it. Now this base, I'm going to have to do quite a bit of compressing with it because it's a lot wider and there's a lot more potential for cracking. So right now I'm just kind of leveling it off. The wheel's going about medium speed. Okay, I'm going to open it up just a little bit more. Make sure my wall is centered. Make sure I'm ready to move that clay. If it's already wobbling, then it's not ready to be moved. Okay, I'm going to open it up just a little bit more. Okay, I can see the wall. When the wall starts to do a little bit of a dance, then I want to rein it in. Now, typically a potter, when you're throwing pieces that have bigger bases like this, you want to throw in a bat. I don't like to use the bats with you guys on these wheels because for lots of reasons. Probably won't get into it now, but if you're ever curious why I'm not using the bats, you can come ask me. But a bat is a piece of plastic that sits on top of the wheel head that connects to these little pegs on the wheel head. And the usefulness of the bat is that you can throw a piece with a wide base and then not have to cut it off and lift it off the wheel head. You just stop the wheel and you pick the bat up and you move it. And then you do a little bit of drawing on that bat before you attempt to move it. But there, you know, you have to have these pegs that stick out. So if you set the wheel up for a bat, then you always have to throw with a bat. If you change your mind, you got to take the pegs out, and it's just this whole thing. So if you ever want to learn how to throw with the bat, I can show you, but you're going to have to be responsible for removing the pegs every class period, which takes like a couple of minutes to figure out how to do. So anyways, okay, now I'm just compressing my base. Now because I have a bigger base and I can actually get my tool down in there, I probably want to spend a little bit of time with my compression tool. And I'm just using the smooth rib tool, and I'm going from the outside edge as close as I can get to the outside edge and just taking it to the center. Okay, so I'm going to clean that up a little bit, and I'm going to take a peek at it before I pull my walls up. I want my base to be somewhat complete, so I really need to get a good look at it. Get all that water out of there. I want it to be perpendicular, my base to my wall, and I don't want any weird divots or bumps. Like right here I see a little bit of a ridge, and then it kind of goes in on the edge there. I want to get rid of that because I don't want that there. I want it to be more flat, so I'm going to dig in right there, and that's going to pull some clay up, so I'm probably going to have to take that clay I dug up all the way to the center here. Nice, get that off of there. Maybe do it one more time. Nice, okay. Nice and level. Alright, so now I'm going to take my walls up, and I'm going to think about if I want it to be a chunky vessel or a delicate vessel. I always think about that. If I want it to be delicate, I got to push it till it almost flops. because then it gets a little bit of an organic form to it, and it has a more of a papery feel to it. But if I want it to have weight, visual and physical weight, then I leave it a little bit stiffer, more static, and thicker, chunkier. So I think with this one I might take it to maybe medium, in between chunky and delicate. Right now I'm really interested in my forms looking a little bit more fragile. Not being more fragile, but looking more fragile. So that means I'm going to have to throw it a little thinner and let it get close to slumping. Alright, so I'm just pulling my wall up. It's going to be a pretty tall vessel here. I'm going to compress my rim. And then I'm going to give it a little bit of a form to it, so I'm going to get the inside wet, and then I'm going to use my rib tool, and I'm going to push from the inside, and then I'm going to follow my fingers with the rib tool. So I'm kind of pinching in the belly of it, and then I'm going to flare out the rim a bit. Always compress my rim every time I pull up, even if I'm using a different tool. Because you're moving the clay up through the wall, it's going to end up here, and if you don't compress and even that out, you're going to have to eventually cut it off to be more even, which you can do, but I have a tendency not to like to have to do that. Okay, so I pushed out the bottom bit, and I'm pinching in the middle, and then I'm flaring out the top. Compressing my rim. It's got a little bit of a honey pot feel to it. Okay, now I'm going to just take a wet finger and I'm going to push on the inside here. I'm just going to make more of a belly right there. Okay, and then I'm going to flare that out a bit. Just for fun. Just for funsies. Alright, now I gotta get that water out of there. You never want to leave water in the bottom of a vessel. You're gonna have a lot of cracking if you do that. You want your clay to dry evenly. You want the water to evaporate out of it evenly. So you have to do a lot of things to create that evenness. You have to make sure the water's out of the bottom. You have to flip your vessel over as it's drying so that the bottom of it, which has the most clay, can air dry just as fast as the rim, which has less clay, which is going to air dry faster. Alright, so I think I like this shape. I'm going to put my little signature finger mark in the bottom. Just run my finger from the outer edge to the center. Give it a little swirl. Sometimes I don't do this because I like to put designs and drawings in the bottom of these vessels, and I need a smooth surface to do that, to paint on. But sometimes I'm just going to go with the flow, and then I paint later. I let the form inspire the design versus the design inspiring the form. Okay, so now I'm going to cut off the base. Here, I need my needle tool. I'm going to get rid of that extra little, there's always extra clay down there. Even if it's a tiny little ribbon, it's still extra clay you don't want to have to trim off later. I always take it off, even if it's a tiny little bit. Okay, then I go around one more time and do a little scrapey. I lost my lights. Okay. I flipped it over, and now I'm getting the little goobers on the bottom there. Okay, so this is the fun part where we have to take this giant thing off the wheel without warping it too much. So I've got my board and my paper towel set up over here, and I'm going to make this nice and tight, and I'm going to slide it under pretty quick. You can see the wire go under your piece. Now this is going to get warpy as I put it on here, but like I said, I am going to intentionally distort it because I like my platters to have an ovally shape to them. It just feels like they're kind of made out of taffy when I do that, and I like that look. All right, slide those under there. Quickly do that. Quickly, quickly. Okay. You can see where the tool goes in and grabs that clay. All right, so this is what I have now. So I'm going to get my hands wet. And I'm going to very carefully sort of tease that shape into an oval. And you want to kind of stand up and look at it from top down so you can see what's happening. But it's just a very, if you push it too far, it's going to flop. Excuse me. Okay, so I'm just going to pay a little bit more attention to this. Push that in a bit. It looks like an eye. There's a pupil in the middle. All right, and then when this dries leather hard, I can put some really fun handles on it. And it kind of looks like, it looks more organic to me when I do these types of things after I take them off the wheel. I enjoy my piece to look like it's still wet even after I've fired it. So that's why I like to manipulate things like this to make them look a little bit more soft. All right, I can't turn that too much, but you can get a sense of it. And I will do a demo on how to put handles on it once it dries a bit. You can kind of see the side of it too. Okay.